Stocks see small but broad-based gains as US-India resume trade talks and US equities gain overnight on expectations of a Federal Reserve rate cut. Auto and utilities lead gainers while healthcare, realty and FMCG bring up the rear. SEBI clears the decks for Pine Labs, Hero Motors, Canara Robeco, AMC, Canara HSBC Life, Insurance and MTR brand owner Orkla to float IPOs. 55 offers have already mopped up over 65,000 crore rupees till August end in FY26 according to Prime database. Expectations of a rate cut by the US Federal Reserve powers gold to a record high and silver to a 14-year high. Base metals, aluminum, copper and zinc to perk up on supply concerns. US Chief Negotiator Brendan Lynch will hold day-long talks with the Indian team today in Delhi. The meeting is the first after imposition of 50% tariffs after the sixth round of talks for bilateral trade in August were called off. Jefferies Chris Wood tells CNBC TV18 he expects FPIs to turn net buyers by the year end as the economy picks up with rate cut transmission and lower GST rates. This, he believes, will be irrespective of whether US casts a tariff on India or not. Well, hello and welcome to Business Lunch live from the CNBC TV18 Motilal Oswal studio. I'm Vamakshi Thoria and the markets are in a fine position right now. Now, after the lull that we saw in the market in the morning, the markets have seen a good recovery. For now, the Nifty is at least trading with a gain of almost 130 points, close to the day's highest point. And you know what's supporting that is finally the Nifty Bank, because the Nifty Bank is also up nearly 0.5%. It has managed to surpass the 55,000 mark in today's trading session. So the Nifty Bank is finally doing well. In the past month, it has been a sort of a drag on the benchmark index. Now, apart from that, let's also take a look at what's happening in the broader end of the market. Remember, yesterday, the broader end of the market was doing quite well for itself. Today's session, more or less, it's actually underperforming the Nifty. The advance decline ratio continues to be in favor of the advances, but the index not reflecting that. The Midcap index up only 0.3%. Now, in terms of sectoral moves, what's good is that most of these sectors are in the green. Take a look at Nifty Media. It's been pushed higher by PVR, Inox as well as Dish TV. The auto pack is also doing extremely well in the trading session today. MRF is up almost 3%. Balakrishna Industries up 2%. Nifty Energy is also one index that is doing well. Now, what's not doing well on the flip side is FMCG, and this is largely being driven by Varun Beverages as well as Godrej Consumer Products. Both of these, FMCG names are down and out in trade today, down somewhere around 1%. But you know what? There's a lot of action happening in the primary markets. There is a rush of IPOs in the pipeline waiting to hit D Street. Hormas tells us what are the notable offers in the pipeline and what kind of response they are seeing.
Yes, primary backer activity has been on the rise ever since the markets have been recovering from the lows that they made in the month of April. And that's evident from the data as well, right? Just yesterday, SEBI cleared quite a few IPOs, Hero Motors being one of them, Orkla India, which is the parent company of MTR. That IPO got the clearance, Pine Labs got the clearance, Canara HSBC and Canara Robeco, the two Canara Bank units. Canara Robeco, in fact, was approved last week itself. So a lot of these major IPOs getting the market regulators clearance as well. But if you take a look at the listed entities so far this year, it's been devoid of action. If the data from Prime database as of last week, around 49 companies on the main board that were listed so far this year, and 1/3 of them, or at least 17 of them, have delivered only single-digit returns. So those are the kind of returns that they have delivered, and only 3 of them have doubled in value from their issue price, and 8 of them are even trading below their IPO price. So at least half of them are either below IPO price or have delivered single-digit returns. Now, it is the market condition is very evident from the IPO activity as well, right? From January to June, when the markets were down down or either sideways, we had only 24 issues hitting the market. Now from June onwards, since the market has seen some bit of recovery coming in, 29 issues have already taken place, including the 3 that closed yesterday. And the activity in them is also evident, right? Urban Company, which was a 1900 crore rupee IPO, that was subscribed over 100 times. Now that 100 times subscription is the highest, according, if reports are to be believed, is the highest for any unicorn that has come out with an IPO so far. And even the other two, Dev Accelerators and Shringar House of Mangalsutra, even though the IPO size is small, but the fact that there were 3 IPOs open at the same time and yet they managed to get a 60x subscription on their overall on the issue size, that's still commendable as well. And even now, the IPOs that are in the pipeline, Prestige Hospitality is the one name that comes to mind. We spoke to the management recently and they mentioned that if everything goes to plan, we might see that IPO coming in as early as next month. That's one big issue. Hero FinCorp, PhysicsWala, LG Electronics is the other major issue to watch out for. And of course, the major NSE IPO that is expected anytime next year. So primary markets are buzzing. There's a pipeline that is very healthy as well. And if the market continues to improve, expect a lot more going into the last street as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Hormas. Indeed, the IPO market is very vibrant, but, a lot of supply coming in. We'll have to wait and see whether or not it is lapped up by the investors. Now, moving on then, let's put the spotlight on Tata Motors. They faced a cybersecurity incident on the 31st of August, which resulted in a systemic shutdown and halt in production. Now, reportedly, this is also resulting in losses for the company. Sudarshan is here with more details. Sudarshan?
So JLR has come out with the updated statement related to cyber incidents that had happened on August of 31. So first statement that company had released was on September 2, in which it has informed of cyber incidents and said that production system was completely shut down. The second statement was released on September 10, in which it said that it's working with cyber security specialists to restart the global operations and also informed about some data being affected. Now today it has released an updated statement in which it's saying that production shutdown is extended till September 24, and also forensic investigation is continuing and we'll have to wait for the result, what exactly is the outcome. But now 2 global newspapers have reported exactly what can the impact be. So first one is BBC. It's saying that cyber attack may cost JLR up to £5 million per day. And also it has come at the worst possible time because recently UK government had introduced registration of new plates, and because of this there was an expectation that September sales might improve for all the companies including JLR. Telegraph is saying that while company is saying that production is shut down till September 24, but it might be impacted even till November of this year. So if this continues, wholesales of Tata Motors and JLR will be impacted in Q2, and also the impact can be felt in Q3 as well. Why it's important for Tata Motors? Because almost 70% of consolidated revenue of Tata Motors comes from JLR. So we'll have to wait and watch how long this issue lasts.
Well, absolutely. We'll have to wait for, how long this issue does last. That explains why the stock is down almost 0.4%. But moving on then, the pharma industry has written to the government seeking leniency over the re-stickering of already manufactured products. Ekta is here with more on this. Ekta?
Well, yes, the pharma industry, in fact, has indicated to the government that when it comes to GST and the move to basically transition to, GST from say 12% to 5% for all pharma products, as well as for the 33 life-saving drugs, which would then go to zero from the current amount that they do have to pay, there is a certain problem that they will be facing, and that particular problem that they would probably be facing is re-stickering, because there is a large volume of products which already exist in the market. So the IPA as well as FICCI have reached out to the government and have indicated that if there could be some kind of leniency which the government would show if in case those volume of products, despite all of the efforts that they've made, will then not have re-stickering or will not have that new price, which would then be indicated, because sometimes there could be a gap from the retailer's side, which could then probably result in some kind of discrepancy, and that the government should probably show some kind of leniency when it comes to that. The IPA, in fact, has asked for 90 days in terms of a transition to the MRP or to the new prices, and hence that is something that the IPA and the FICCI have reached out to the government for, and to indicate that the volume of products is so much that the shift and the transition will probably not be as easy.
All right. Thank you so much for bringing us those details, Ekta. But let's shift our focus to India-US trade talks. America's top trade negotiator, Brendan Lynch, has arrived in India and will hold negotiations for the first time since Trump administration imposed the 50% tariffs on the country. Now, my colleague Abhimanyu Sharma is here with more details on this. Abhimanyu, what are you picking up?
Well, it's not the sixth round of negotiations yet. It's the talks are going to take place only for a day today, which is possibly going to decide the way ahead, how talks are going to proceed in the near future, when is going to be the next round of negotiations, and more importantly, whether both the sides are going to stick to the timeline which had earlier been indicated by both the sides. Now, the timeline which was indicated earlier by the leaders of both the countries was the first tranche of a mutually beneficial bilateral trade agreement by the fall of this year. That is by the October or November of this year. So it remains to be seen how early both the sides are going to fix the next date of negotiations, that is the next round of negotiations, which will involve several issues. Now, the talks which are taking place today between the top negotiators from both the sides are going to decide not just on the timeline, but also several issues pertaining to pending diplomatic concerns may also be taken up, since MEA would also be a part of the talks from India's side. So all issues, of course, would be on the table as part of these one-day talks, which are going to decide the future, the fate of the future negotiations, and whether both the sides are going to stick to a timeline of the first tranche of a PTA by this fall or not.
Well, thank you so much for that, Abhimanyu. But just a short while ago, we spoke to Chris Wood of Jefferies on the Indian market and the US tariffs on India. Let's listen into that as well.
So in the big picture, this is just a year of healthy consolidation in the Indian stock market, and what remains, in my view, the best structural growth story in global equities. And the big positive for the Indian stock market is the huge continuing mutual fund inflows have absorbed this supply. Now, if those domestic mutual fund flows did not exist, the Indian market may be down about 20–30%, and then that would have triggered big foreign buying. But because the domestic flows have been absorbing the supply, we've had this sideways trading pattern. But in the big picture, it's a healthy consolidation. And my view is very simple. In this Indian government and no Indian government is going to open up agriculture. And my view is also very simple, that this Indian government is not going to be ordered around by the US about not buying Russian oil, most particularly when it's pretty clear to everyone that this oil is refined in India and then bought by the Europeans.
Well, that's the word coming in from Chris Wood of Jefferies, but we also caught up with Ashwini Agarwal of Demeter Advisors on the tariffs. Let's listen into that as well.
The government's response to the higher tariffs from the US by way of cuts in GST rates and rationalizing of the GST rate table is actually a very big positive. We have the US trade representative in India today. There are hopes that India will revert to a lower tariff of about 20 to 25% as opposed to 50% that's being levied right now with the US as the year progresses. And if that happens, that will give the market another leg up.
Well, with that, let's slip into a very short break. More news and updates follow on the other side, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch on CNBC TV18. Well, let's now focus in on the Federal Reserve's meeting. Now, the two-day meet begins today, and CNBC's Steve Leisman brings us the details as to what is at stake for Jerome Powell as well as the central bank.
There's a lot for those eyes to be looking at with a little Fed meeting mayhem. Just under 18 hours to go before the Fed begins its two-day meeting. Unclear how many voters will be there. Relative confidence, however, in how the voters will vote. Here's what's in play right now. The administration asked for an appeals court to overturn the Cook injunction against her firing by the president sometime by today, so we're watching the docket. The Senate's supposed to vote on the nomination of CEA Chair Stephen Myron, so we're watching the Senate. Cloture vote supposed to happen at 5:30, full vote at 8 o'clock. So there could be 10, could be 11, could be 12 voters at the Fed meeting tomorrow. We don't know. May not know till late tonight. Beyond personnel, the Fed has to deal with economic issues, inflation running above the 2% target, unemployment ticking up, and they have to find a compromise between hawks and doves, both worried about different sides of the mandate there. The futures market, not troubled by either the personnel or the economic issues. They overwhelmingly are priced for 3 cuts this year, 1 at each of the remaining 3 meetings. If Myron is approved, there will be considerable speculation about what you might call the Myron dot. President Trump was complaining that the funds rate 300 basis points too high. No Fed official has a future dot anywhere near that. We'll see where Myron comes in. He remains, however, the chair of the President's Council of Economic Advisors on unpaid leave of absence. So it remains to be seen if we forecast deep rate cuts, that could drive down the average rate that the market focuses on, but for the outlook for the Committee for Rates. Now, we could have dissents, Dom, in favor of a cut bigger than 25, and even a dissent for no cut at all.
Well, thank you so much for bringing us all of those details, Steve. Indeed, all eyes on what the outcome of the Federal Reserve's meeting will hold. But former Federal Reserve Vice Chairman Roger Ferguson believes Jerome Powell will not close the door on more rate cuts this year. Listen in.
I think what we're going to hear from Jay Powell at the press conference is that the next series of meetings are, quote, live. But I think you used a word that's going to be really important, which is the data. I think we're going to hear again, this is a data-dependent Fed. We want to be cautious. So I don't think he's going to close the door on the possibility of more cuts this year, but I'm not sure that he's necessarily going to signal that it's a definite thing. I think he's going to more likely say, you know, every meeting is an independent decision, and the data will decide.
Meanwhile, precious metals are glittering. Gold and silver prices are at record highs ahead of the Fed decision. Manisha is here with more on this. Manisha?
Well, the gold rally is absolutely unstoppable with the kind of gains that we continue to see in this one and string of record highs that it continues to make. So from where we stand right now, we are almost near $36.90 an ounce, inches away from that psychological mark of $3,700 an ounce. Well, the U.S. Fed meeting starts today, the two-day meeting, and we will hear that announcement tomorrow. But ahead of that, there is a decline in the dollar index, which is trading at a 2-month lows. And the markets pretty much have factored in now a 25 basis point rate cut coming in this week itself, and that's what's showing in the prices. So with that run up, gold has gained up by nearly 40% in this year. We are looking at all-time highs in dollar terms, in Indian rupee terms, and various other currencies as well. And it's not just even about gold. Take a look at silver, a new 14-year highs onto this one, and a 48% of gains for the silver prices is in this year until now. Well, there is a lot of data that is oncoming, and the street will keep an eye on that. You have the U.S. retail sales data, industrial production numbers that come in today, and then the Fed quarterly summary in sense of economic projections would also be released today. That is where the street will take next cues from. Having said that, this whole thing about de-dollarization, central banks adding gold to their reserves, geopolitical tension, tariff issues, and the huge debt that the U.S. markets seem to be working with right now is all impacting gold buying therein. So whether it is about physical buying, speculative buying, gold mining stocks, gold jewelry stocks, we have seen a fund inflow come in for this one right now. The expectation is that going forward, it could be a 10% correction from here, which could take you to $3,400 an ounce. But on the higher side, it still is open for 20%, depending on how the global markets take cues from that. So $3,800, $4,000 an ounce still on cards.
Well, thank you so much for bringing us those updates from the world of commodities. But let's slip into a very short break for now. More news and updates follow on the other side, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. The United States and China have reached a basic framework to switch the short video app TikTok to US-controlled ownership. Now, this will be confirmed in a call between President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday. Take a look at this report.
The United States and China have reached a framework agreement to switch TikTok to US-controlled ownership. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent spoke to reporters on Monday in Madrid, where negotiations with senior Chinese officials were taking place.
We have a framework for a TikTok deal. The two leaders, President Trump and Party Chair Xi, will speak on Friday to complete the deal.
Bessent said further details would be determined in Friday's call between Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping.
We're not going to talk about the commercial terms of the deal. It's between two private parties, but the commercial terms have been agreed upon.
Bessent said a looming deadline that could have switched off the popular short video social media app in the U.S. pushed Chinese negotiators to reach an agreement. He also said the commercial terms of the deal will preserve aspects of TikTok that Chinese negotiators care about. Bessent added, quote, "We don't care about Chinese characteristics. We care about national security." China's top trade negotiator, Li Chengyang, had this to say.
The
U.S. side has generalized national security concerns and continuously expanded its sanctions list against Chinese entities. Its long-arm jurisdiction has reached deeper and further. This is a typical act of unilateral bullying, which violates international law and the basic norms of international relations. China firmly opposes this and raised serious concerns with the U.S. side during the talks.
Any agreement could require approval by Congress, which passed a law in 2024 requiring TikTok's Chinese owner, ByteDance, to sell the platform to an American company or face a ban. The U.S. has signaled fears that data from TikTok's 170 million American users could be accessed by the Chinese government. But Trump has sought a way of keeping the app open to Americans. He praised the TikTok deal on Monday. Earlier on Monday, a U.S. official with knowledge of the negotiations had said that the U.S. would press ahead with a ban on TikTok if China didn't drop its demands for reduced tariffs and technological restrictions as part of a deal.
Moving on then, Israel's assault on Gaza intensifies as large blasts and flashes were seen from southern Israel across the Gaza skyline today early morning. Health officials in Gaza report at least 57 people have been killed in the strikes. This comes even as U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is on a visit to Israel. Rubio also called on Qatar to continue to play a constructive role in resolving the conflict in Gaza. Well, that's all we have on this edition of Business Lunch. We're leaving you with a green-looking screen. The team of Midcap Radar takes all of the action forward.